Hello, this is the Harboring Night. I'm Mary. I give a conservative perspective about the world around me. And I'm recording outside again. You hear chickens. We have chickens, so forgive the noise. So feedback is important. Feel free to reach out to me either through the sources that I have provided for you to do so. Feel free to reach out either way. Alright, so some of the audio platforms that I'm on Spreaker, I'm on Spotify, I'm on Pandora, I'm on iHeartRadio. These are just to name a few. Alright, so it's Friday, so I'm focusing in on all the listeners out here. And I'm much appreciative to all of you. So this week I'm focusing in on Finland and specifically Helsinki and fashion of Helsinki. Here we go. Alright, so this week I'm going to do something different. I am going to focus in on the aspects of talking about what the fashion is, why it's different, and what the contributions and the aspects and the artistic elements of fashion from Helsinki. So this is an extension and an elaboration, I think. And I think I might go into developing these aspects on further concepts with fashion when it comes to all of you listeners out there and where you're from. Because, all right, so when I'm going to relay this back to January when I was talking about House of Fashion, and particularly how in that show, of course, it goes with the territory, the aspects of fashion. Getting a bad rap, the aspects of focusing in on the, outer, inner aspects of it's only, flash in the pants here. And that's really understandable, because back when I was working in Houston, I was fortunate enough to get a job was centered around the aspects of luxury fashion. Then I had a co-worker who was giving me commentary. He was talking about the aspects of his point of view about, fashion shows, Whereas in the elements of, it's just, putting on the show. He's not really in the elements of getting into the aspects, breaking down the elements and the nature of the day-to-day aspects of fashion, because fashion in itself and the business of fashion is really hard work, and it's nothing to take lightly either. Particularly when you're talking about the aspects here, when you're breaking down, you're talking about the material that you want to showcase, to use for your particular pieces. And then when you get into the intricate designs, and then also what all these things are supposed to showcase and mean to your piece or your label at large. What kind of value are you contributing, and are you giving value, or are you just using it for something that's spectatorship? What is the overall meaning and the element of that particular line or brand that you want to launch? And also with the aspects of getting the word out about it. And, that takes a lot of hard work too, particularly if you're not with a fashion house and you're, trying to be an independent label. and you're relying either on different sorts of methods, word of mouth, or you're relying on social media, or particularly when we go back to the aspects of word of mouth here. Can you imagine not living in the aspects of the social media age, not living in the aspects of using the technology for your advantage in the aspects of the internet and spreading information so quickly. So what I mean by this, when we get in the aspects of things that were going on, further back, when you get in the 80s, 70s, and so forth, and even particularly in earlier parts of the 90s, versus the mid part of the 90s and so forth, when technology was more prevalent and people had more, readable use to the internet as a source to spread ideas. And that's something to really consider with the aspects of that. So, to become what you want it to be, you want to be a household name or so forth, but also in the aspects of that with the powers that be, the aspects of, do they want to support you? Do they want to encourage you? Do they want to nourish your line, or do they want to just silence the aspects of the particular designer, artist, what have you, with their work, for whatever reasons that may. And now this gets into a lot of the aspects of what's going on with fashion today. And it's unfortunate, when, ideologies or political ideas and so forth, or, something as simple as the aspects of we don't think you are sensitive enough or so forth. That's really a slippery slope here, because that loses the aspects of the dedication, the type of dedication and hard work that it takes to build up a particular article of clothing, and particularly a whole, line of clothing. And in that, do you really want to have it boggled down by social politics? And there's a different. Now, what am I saying about social politics and the aspects of that? So there's typical politics where you get in the aspects of the day-to-day grind of the economy and so forth. Because that's a heavy hitter. Because that's the people's well-being is a vital source to the aspects of where the political benchmarks are lying, and how flourishing the culture is. And we get into the aspects of social politics. That's a whole nother beast in itself. So what is that really saying? It's saying that if you are not, if we feel that you don't have enough empathy for what we think or how we feel, then you're out of the game. So, a really good example of that is what has been going on in the way that has revolved itself back to tradition. So, Victoria's Secret and Calvin Klein and brands like that. These brands were on the staple of showing particularly young people, fit people, and and it's all in its glory and in the aspects of wish fulfillment when it comes to marketing. Don't you wish to you could be like me, and aspiration, deluded aspirations, to each his own. But, in the aspects, wish fulfillment. And so they had good looking, in shape people, flaunting the covers, flaunting their, advertorial pieces in magazines, on billboards, what have you. So how does that transition play out, when we get into the culture of social awareness, when you go into having obese women, obese people flaunting and saying, oh, all sizes are beautiful. Look at this. These are really good examples. And folks, people are trying to push it. Oh, this is normal. This is this is that. But when the glass finally, the light and the glimmer and that I equate it to this, where you're on a production set or something falls, or particularly a light fixture falls when you're trying to set up everything, and then when that drops, you just let it go and you move on. And then when it finally drops, people let that conception go and move on, because they realize, hey, when you're hitting them where they live with this, is the monetary aspects of it is not really flourishing like it used to be, then the concept is gone. So that really in itself, when it's all that's revealed, that goes in the aspects of the social awareness issues, political issues. Do these brands really stand on a stable ground here? That's something to really look at and think about when in the aspects of that too. And all of these concepts here, I'm going to get in, and I think these are, different elements to keep in mind when I'm talking about the sense of fashion and the aspects that fashion from Helsinki has contributed to the culture. And I appreciate, again, with the aspects of the originality and boldness of, cultures that contribute to that, to, override the elements of what is expected or not expected. But at the same time, I'm giving these examples because also keep in mind that when there's companies like mainstream companies like Calvin Klein and so forth, and Victoria's Secret, that they go away from what they originally, the concepts of what they originally built or hard work that they built their business on. That's another element to take in consideration. Do you really care about the nature of the process of fashion? And that's something to consider too. With all that said, I'm going to wrap up with facts about the contributions of fashion from Helsinki. Here we go. And of course, the source for this will be provided for you in this episode. Okay. Now, this is by a magazine, popular magazine of Finnish magazine. So it's entitled Helsinki and How the Fashion Weeks Are Changing in the Fashion Landscape. It says, when it comes to Scandinavian fashion, Copenhagen often dominates the spotlight, largely thanks to the growing success of its Fashion Week in recent years. A bit further north, overlooking the shores of the Baltic Sea, lies what could be considered the more radical and avant-garde sister of Nordic style, Helsinki. The Finnish capital perfectly embodies the striking contrast that define the local aesthetic, where the brutalist architecture of, forgive me for the pronunciation, Murataka, coexists with the romantic elegance of the Spalndas Gardens, just minutes apart. So this duality was especially evident during this year's early edition of the Helsinki Fashion in Helsinki, which was held from May. This is, past. Well, no, not exactly. This is current, because it's a lot been going on recently in my life, like travel and stuff. So, yes, that this is past, and it is recent. So May 21st to 24th, which focused on the most experimental. And what I meant by past, like a past year, but actually this is current year. So, which focused on the most experimental and forward-thinking practices of Finnish designers. So the event schedule brought together emerging talents and established brands and key institutes from the fields of art and design, fostering a constant dialogue between fashion and art through runway shows, exhibition, pop-ups, and activations across the city. So, as Marta Lukatara, Communications Director of Fashion in Helsinki, noted, Finnish designers constantly push the boundaries between fashion and art. So Finnish fashion favors quality over quantity, which means it's a celebration of freedom and personal style. And this is precisely where the strength of Finnish fashion lies, beyond the codes of tradition and elitism that have long defined the Big Four. So this year's edition opened. In this year's edition, it was more youth-driven. And a stage in public streets and squares, we provided that fashion beyond the global capitals can be truly democratic, not a replica of outdated systems struggling to stay afloat. So, fashion in Helsinki kicked off with one of the most compelling shows of the week, set against the brutalist backdrop of one of the city's most iconic locations, Meritaka. Five Finnish brands, industry muscle by Lemon-Tier, Linda Cohen, Sinsalava, and Rolf Eckleworth showcased their collections in a cinematic, almost post-apocalyptic atmosphere that amplified the tension between urban space and creative vision. Among them, Rolf Eckleworth stood out with a collection which was built around the tension of opposites. On the other hand, classic menswear tailoring echoed the Italian aspects of tradition on the other end of this. So we got fluid silhouettes and genderless garments adorned with floral elements that symbolically reclaim their harsh setting. Eckleworth, who helms an independent label deeply rooted in Finnish culture, operates at the intersections of ultralism and nostalgia, with a design practice anchored in traditional craft. His work oscillates between past and present masculine and feminine aspects. Alright, so I'm going to end on this now. It's quite interesting when the aspects of Democrat, ideas, when that translates to other cultures. So, each horse is not the same here. Now, democracy here in America is quite different than democracies in other cultures. Democracy in other cultures, from what I understand, and you all listeners out there, feel free to, put input in here about your aspects, what you think about what I'm saying here. They're actually trying to get into the aspects of political freedom with ideas, and people are uprooted and heard and spoken, and they have freedom to do so, and that's real freedom, because it's particularly if you get in the aspects of communist countries, or you get in the aspects of dictatorships, and they have that root in there, and you translate the aspects of democracy. That's really a flourishing thing. Excuse me. I think that's really a flourishing thing, because they are breaking root from the aspects of complete annihilation of ideas and and flourishment and truly there is no say or reason or any sort of new sort of elements of enlightenment. And that's something to be considered and said when that democracy translates to other cultures. That gives a new perspective when it circles back around the aspects of what can be learned with democracy in America. With all that said, I'd like to know what you all think, and this reaches the end of the Harboring Light. Tune in, turn up, and definitely take care. Bye-bye for now.